This will be episode number 5 in our course. In this one, I'll be covering the Imagers, so let's get started. I will not be going over this scene setup since I already made it before in another video, so I'll leave the link in the description. So let's get started with Imagers. To add an Imager to your scene, there are two ways to do so. The first method is using the render settings, so let's hit Ctrl B. The render settings window will pop up. Let's head to effects and then choose the Arnold Imager. This is the first method. The second method is by using the post-process imagers throughout the IBR. So let's open our IBR. After opening your IBR, on the right hand corner you can find three words lined up in a column. First one is post, and through it you can add your imagers, and this is the second method. For now, let's maximize our IBR. We will be using it for the whole time. Click on the first imager that we have already added. It's a color correct imager on the right hand corner. Let's make this window bigger, and let's start demonstrating all the four tabs. These four tabs are included in every imager that we have right here. The first tab is the imager, from which you can choose any kind of imager that you would like. As you can see, we have three sections. The first section is for colors. The second one is for the denoisers. The third one is for the light mixer. I will not be covering every single one of them, but I'll be covering the ones that I may use in my work. So let's keep it on the color correct imager, and let's head to the second tab in this imager, which is selection. In the first row next to render, we have all, IBR, and batch. There are three options. The first option is all, IBR, and batch, and this will add all the changes that you've made to your IBR and also to your final render throughout the picture viewer in the normal tab of the Cinema 4D. If you choose IBR only, it will only add it to the IBR. It will not be added to your final outputs. For batch only, it will be added only to your final renders, and it will not be added to your IBRs. Next, we have the drivers. We have all or selected. If you select or, it will add it to your all drivers. Maybe you have a denoiser, or maybe you have an EXR driver with GBG's driver. If you have it on all, it will apply to all of your drivers. If you have it on selected, it will only apply the changes to the selected drivers. Next, we have the AOVs, almost the same options. If you have it on all, it will apply to all the AOVs if you have any. If you have it on the beauty RGBA, it will only add it to the beauty RGBA AOV. If you have it on expression, you will have to add your own expression. And then we have presets. You can save or load any presets you may have. And lastly, we have the main tab, which we have our controls in. And this tab always differs depending on the imager that you're trying to use. For the color correct imager, as you can see, we have four main smaller tabs: the main, the shadows, and the midtones and highlights. The main values controls everything in the image, all the shadows, the midtones, and the highlights. It's a multiplier value over all other values. So if we increase the saturation, let's say instead of 1, let's use 2. As you can see, it multiplied all the saturation values all across the rendered image. And same goes for every other value. Let's try a value of 2 for the contrast, and now a value of 2 for the gamma, and then a value of 2 for the gain, And now the value of the offset, if you increase it, you're offsetting your image into being a full blown white, or you can decrease it to go onto fully black image. Let's reset it. And if I open up the shadows, midtones, and highlights, we will find the same attributes: saturation, contrast, gamma, gain, and offset in each one of them. But it is more specific for each of the three components. If you increase the value of the saturation in the midtones, it will only affect the midtones. Let's try a value of 3 instead of 1. As you can see, it affected only the midtones in the image, and it will not affect anything else. And the same goes for each other value. And now let's move on. Let's change our imager. Let's go to the imager tab, and under imager, change color correct to color curves, and go to the main tab. Instantly you find RGB, and then it's separated into 3 different curves. The RGB curve controls the red, green, and blue values in the whole image, but you have the separated version of the 3 colors. Each have its own unique curve, and so the dot in the upper right hand corner is controlling the highlights, as you can see on the left, and the other one on the left bottom controls the shadows. We can also control the midtones if we add another dot on this curve in the middle by using Control and then clicking in the middle here. You can check the effect on the left. And the same goes for the other curves. Let's reset this one. And that would be it for this imager. Let's move on to the next one. Head to the imager tab, and under imagers, let's try the exposure. Again, head back to the main tab. This is a singular value imager. It only controls the exposure. So instead of a 0, let's go for 1, and then 2, and let's try a value of -1. And then I'll just reset it and go to the next imager. The next one is the lens effect, and this is probably the ones that I use the most. Head back again to the main tab. As you can see, we have 2 separate tabs, one for the bloom and the other one is for the vignette effect. Let's start with the vignette by increasing the value. Instead of a 0, let's go for 10. And now let's try 20, 50. The last one would be 80. And now reset it, and let's head to the bloom. Let's start by increasing the strengths. The bloom tab is used to add some sort of a glow effect to the lights that you have in your scene. So let's start by increasing the strengths. Let's use a value of 0.1. Immediately you start seeing the bloom effect near the light source. Let's start increasing the value till 1. And now for the radius, increase the radius till 8. And as you can see, the radius controls the amount of the pixels that will be affected around the area that we have the bloom in. And now for the threshold value. The threshold controls the minimum value that we will have the effect on. So if we increase the value, the number of the pixels that will be affected will be less. Let's try a value of 5. And now 10. And as you can see, the bloom effect now is kind of limited around the light source. Last thing we have here is the tint effect. It's just a value to control the bloom color effect. I'll change this white color to reddish color. Let's try a bluish color. Looks nice. And let's move on to the next imager. So we have the tone map. Going back to the main tab. And this tone map imagers have three modes: the filmic, the Reinhard, and LUTs. It's on the LUT by default, and it will ask you to navigate to your folder that you have your LUTs in, or a specific file if you want to do so. And lastly, we have the last imager, and that will be the white balance. Going back to the main tab. This imager has three modes: the illuminant, the temperature, and the custom. You can use any of the three modes to achieve a variety of hue colors in a specific scenario that you have in mind. Let's try with the illuminant. It defaults to daylight, so this is how it will look if we have the shot in a daylight. You can change this to, let's say, a sun. You notice that we have a different hues in the scene now. Let's try using anything other than light. Let's try shade. This is how it would look if we are in the shade. Again, you notice that we have different hues for the same colors. Let's try something else. Let's try mercury. The second mode is the temperature. We can use any kind of temperature if we have a exterior shot. If you increase the temperature value, you will get more saturated and orangish colors. If you decrease the value, you can get more cold colors. Or in the final custom one, you can use any kind of hues that you are going for. And that would be it for the imagers. See you next time.